Welcome back to Positive Mischief. We have a really cool guest. I'm excited about this. David Aldridge from The Athletic.
Yes.
Yep. Before I said The Atlantic, and that's not right. So David, as some of you guys may know, he's had a pretty awesome sports career on TV, behind the camera. He's now writing full-time, all the time. You know, you're not doing TV stuff anymore. So do you miss that?
I miss the people. But,
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, I worked, the last TV job I had was with Turner for 14 years, and it was great. I loved it, loved every bit of it. Unfortunately, they changed. The room changed. It's television. It changes. You know? Different people come in charge with different motivations and different priorities, and as we can see, they no longer have the NBA.
What a shame.
Yeah, so it's kind of sad, you know. So I kind of feel like I got out at the right time, even though I didn't. That wasn't why I left. I didn't leave because I was unhappy. I wasn't unhappy at all. I just needed to be closer to home. We had two boys who were 13 and 9 at the time, 13 and 10 at the time. And I needed to be home more.
And so home is DC for you?
Home is DC, yeah. It's been my home my whole life.
So you tell me about that a little bit. Born and raised here?
Yep,
went to
born
school?
and raised. And born at what is now Howard University Hospital. It was called Freedman's Hospital when I was born. We lived 2 blocks from there until I was 2. Then we moved to Northeast off of 20th Street. Grew up there. Went to American University. Stayed home.
There are not many people who can say that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've lived everywhere in this city other than Southeast. I lived in Southwest. I lived in Northeast and Northwest. Other than I lived in Bethesda for 2 years right after college. But other than that, I've been in the city my whole life.
Wow. I moved here in 2003, and I remember being in a cab. I don't know, before Uber, obviously. And the cab driver, we were just kind of, chatting it up, and he's like, "How long you been here?" I was like, "Oh, since this time." He's like, "Well, that makes you a local." And I was like, "Really?" He was like, "That's how it works around here. You're a local if you've been here that long." I was like, "I don't know about that, but I appreciate what you're trying to say. It's such a transient
it works
place.
That way.
Yeah, it's so transient that if you're here for X amount of time, you kind of qualify. You get grandfathered in."
My wife, we met in college. So she's been here 40 years, and I'm just now saying, all right, okay, I guess you're a Washingtonian. I guess.
You got a high standard. Way better than that cabbie did, that's for sure. So one of the questions I like to ask people right out of the gate is about your job. So if you could describe your job to a child, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old, how would you do that?
Well, it's interesting that you ask me that, because I always think about this a lot. At the other end of the spectrum, I didn't get to know either of my grandfathers. They both died before I was born. And I think about it a lot now. And I think about if I had to explain what I do for a living to my grandfathers, how would I explain it?
Yeah. And
I always think about, I know they would go, "You do what?
You talk about sports?
You talk about sports? What? I don't understand." So I write about sports. Yeah. I write about sports. I go to games and I write about what happened at the game. And that people like reading that stuff.
Yeah. I watched you on TV, all throughout your time at TNT and ESPN and that kind of thing. So, is that something you always wanted to do? Like, how did that come about?
It was a curiosity when I was a kid growing up in DC in the 70s. Watergate was like the biggest story in the world. And it was in the Washington Post every day. And even though I didn't know half of what I was reading it every day. Going, wow, this seems kind of cool. Yeah. This seems like a big story. They keep writing about this every day. And then I turn on the TV and they're talking about what was in the Washington Post today. And I read the story again. And so I thought, wow, that must be an important job that those guys have, whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, you kind of put it in the back of your mind. And then when I was in high school, my English teacher, my homeroom teacher, Mr. Joe Carroll, was the first person that said, you kind of write well. You should think about working for the school paper. Oh. And I never thought about it before. And all right, and it was a high school paper, so it didn't come out very often, but it came out a few times. And yeah, once you see your name in print, and well, it was print then, and then you see a story underneath it, you kind of get the bug a little bit.
I'm sure.
So
yeah.
that kind of started it, and then I went to AU and majored in journalism and worked at the school paper for 4 years and really loved it. Really came to love it. Wanted very badly to do that when I graduated, although I didn't know if I would be able to, because it was different back then. You didn't just get hired.
Right, and you couldn't do a blog. You couldn't do...
No, right. So there was a distinct way you got into the business. You had to work at a small paper, then a medium-sized paper, and then maybe you get hired by a big paper. And that was kind of what you had to do. That was the path. And I say this all the time. I was insanely lucky that I never had to do that path because of a series of fortunate circumstances, which I could go into great detail about, but is not all that important. I was able to get hired right out of college by the Washington Post.
That's
which
awesome.
Just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I know that doesn't happen. That's insane. That doesn't happen to people, but it happened to me. So, and that gave me an opportunity to kind of really begin my career at an incredibly high level and understand immediately what this business requires of you. And I was able, one thing I loved about my boss at the Post was that he threw you right in. He didn't I wasn't answering phones or getting coffee for people. You are covering the Orioles tonight.
Let's do it, yeah.
Let's see if you can do this or not.
Yeah.
And you just go out and you do the absolute best you can with no institutional knowledge whatsoever. And you try to write a coherent story. And I did it enough times that they thought I could do it regularly, and they hired me. So
with sports, did you get to go and choose to do sports? Did you want to do sports?
I didn't.
Was that just like, hey, we got this?
No, well, when my senior year at AU, one of my good friends was already working covering high school sports at the Post, and he said, the high school editor at the time was an AU grad, and he said, hey, he wants you to call him because he'll give you, he likes hiring AU kids. And so this guy let me cover high school sports my senior year of college, and I did football and basketball mainly. And so that got me in the building. And then you start doing agate and stuff like that, and you just you're just there all the time. And I guess Lenny Shapiro, who was an editor at the time, said, you should apply for this internship. They have an internship program at the Post. You should apply for it. And I did, and I was one of the sports interns that they picked that year.
That's
so
cool.
After I graduated, I did an internship at the Post after my senior year in college, and that's where they kind of threw me in and saw that I could do this. And yeah, one thing led to another. But again, this happens to nobody.
Sure.
This isn't a ridiculous
I
story.
get that very much too, yeah. So it's funny, I just think about that sort of trajectory, and you get a lot of times the person who's the sports reporter, played Little League or played
I sucked at
high school.
I was terrible at everything. I was awful.
There you go. It's the love of sports, and that keeps them into it.
Yeah, no, I love sports. I just wasn't any good at it. I wasn't any good at playing.
Yeah.
I loved it. I played in the street ball, street football. I was good at that. But when you actually put pads on, no.
Different story, huh?
Most people say they couldn't hit a curve. I couldn't hit a fastball, so they didn't even get to curve with me.
I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're talking DC, and we're here right now, just outside of the Capitol. DC sports scene. It's kind of booming right now.
Well, the Commanders are. I don't know about
basketball.
teams.
Yeah, you're right. I guess in the last,
the Commanders are doing very well, and then they're very high trajectory right now.
You got a World Series recently with the Nats.
Yes.
Hockey have had a couple good runs too.
Yes, and Ovechkin.
Basketball is we're struggling, man.
The pro team is, the pro team is.
Yeah.
The Wizards are, but I always think of this as a basketball town, much more than a football town, because there's no great tradition. I mean, there's been really good football players who've come out of here, but there's not an incredible high school football tradition in Washington. There's not an incredible college football tradition in the area. Maryland's been decent from here and there, and Virginia Tech was not really Washington, but we sort of claim them when they're good,
exactly.
that sort of thing. So,
yeah.
But if you look at high school basketball, and you look at DeMatha, and you look at Spingarn, and you look at some of the other incredible programs, Dunbar, that have come up. And then if you want to go into Virginia, Flint Hill, and some of the other, nationally ranked programs have been here for 50 years, 60 years, right? And, there's great traditions at the public school level. There's great traditions at the private school level. There's great traditions at the Catholic school level. There's great traditions at the state level in Maryland and Virginia. So it's been there forever. And then Maryland won a national championship. Georgetown won a national championship.
Right.
So they've had incredible profiles here as a basketball city. The problem is the pro team hasn't been good for 40 years.
Hasn't been able to translate that
over.
It's
been terrible since the 70s, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I think people kind of don't think of it that way. But again, being from here, I kind of know a little bit of the history here, and I just know that there's much more history of basketball being great here than football.
Yeah. No, I get that. The pro thing is a little bit different, I think, when you talk about the local level versus the pro.
Yeah.
So as we talk about this show, and it's a creative podcast, we're talking about creativity.
Yeah.
I could talk sports with you all day long. so we won't go spend too much time on that. But I was thinking about some of these things that have to do with sports and creativity and writing.
Yeah.
And when you're crafting these stories, and someone who's done it for so long, and you've got these big personalities you're dealing with,
right,
both on set and on the court or on the field, like, what's that like for you as you're preparing for a story in sort of a creative way? Like, sometimes what happens on the field is the creative part.
Sure.
That you just roll with that.
Yeah.
Other times I wouldn't see if to maybe manufacture, but you have to, like, what's the angle? So what does that look like from a creative standpoint for you?
Every day, I wait for the day, I'm sure it's coming, when I get to an arena or to a practice facility and nothing's there. Nothing is in my head. There's always something in my head. I'm always thinking about something.
Yeah.
90, well, I shouldn't put a percentage on it. A lot of it never comes to fruition because the idea was dumb, or the person or people that could illuminate you on it don't. That happens a lot. They just they just don't have a lot to say about it.
Yeah. So do you have one, I'll interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
Do you have one that comes to mind? Like, do you have one where you're like, you know what, I really was hoping to talk to Ewing about something, and do you have one of those really cool ideas that maybe sticks in you?
Yeah, well, there's still a few, there's still some. I mean, I still want to do a story on what it's like to be traded. Like, I just think about that all the time.
Yeah.
You wake up one morning and you work in Dallas, and you have a house in Dallas, and your wife lives with you in the house in Dallas, and you have kids who go to school in Dallas, and you play basketball in Dallas, and that's what you do for a living, and then you get a phone call, and the general manager says, "We just traded you to Portland." And now you live in Portland.
So does no one like to talk about that?
Everybody's been traded, so that's why I keep thinking, like, why can't I get this? Why can't I get this for fruition? Because everybody in sports has been traded at one point or another. Because I just think it's fascinating. Like, what do you do with your car? I'm just curious about stuff like that.
I would agree with that. Yeah, what do you do
happens
with that?
Well, how do you? But Daddy, I have a plane next week. Not anymore.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Or you can have the play. I just can't go to the play. So I mean, So I just think about that all the time. Like, that's got to be the most unmooring, wild, weird feeling of all time.
I would agree with that completely.
Like, I've been fired before. We've all been fired from jobs before, but they didn't fire me from the city I lived in. I could just go get another job in that city. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's just, I just wonder about that all the time. Like, that's got to be incredibly unsettling. I would think it would be.
I would agree with you. I mean, I was a military brat, so we knew we were moving.
Yeah.
And there was always some sort of plan. We'll be here for this amount of time.
Right.
There was one time the base closed where we didn't expect that, so we all had to move early, but we all moved early.
We all moved together.
Yeah.
Sure.
But this idea that you could be gone like that
in a minute. Sometimes but a lot of times you don't.
I almost feel like there's a book there instead of a single story.
I think it could be a very long magazine story.
What
I've kind of always had in my head. That's a magazine story, probably.
Do you think they're afraid to talk about it?
I think it's probably a little difficult because your family's involved, your kids are involved a lot of times, and you know, kids are kids. They have every right to have the emotions that they have.
Yeah.
And you can't say you're wrong to be upset that you're leaving your best friends, the only people that you know in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, no. So I mean, you wouldn't want to speak for your children on that, right? So I think that there's probably some of that, and then there's probably I suspect there's in sports, as you know, there's a lot of testosterone in men's sports, and I'm stronger than that. I'll show them. You know, there's a lot of that. So they don't want to admit being vulnerable and being, you know, scared and like, what does this mean? And you know,
they play it's just business card.
Yeah,
this is how it works.
And it is business, but it's
it's still your life.
Yeah, exactly. And you still have to move to Portland. Like I don't know anybody in Portland. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So that's a fun one. So I can see where as a writer, those are the ideas that are kind of brewing in your head that you have to try to figure out, like, where does that fit here? Is there an angle here? Is there not an angle here?
Is it a short? Is it something I can do in a week, or is it something that requires 6 months?
Yeah.
And, you know, you sort of know the ones that are going to be longer. So you just kind of roll with it.
So tell me the book that you do have, the 100 Greatest Players.
That we did that. That was an offshoot of a few years ago. It was 2000. It was 21 or 22. I can't remember. The NBA had its 75th anniversary. So everybody did a top 75 of all time, and we did one too, you know. And so we ranked them, and wrote a series of articles over several months about each of the top 75 players that we had picked, and finished it. And it was a good series. Did well, and people liked it. At The Athletic, one of the things we have is it's a nascent kind of a book publishing kind of thing that we do with the different sports. So over the last few years, the NFL did a greatest 100 because their 100th anniversary was in 2021. So they did a top 100. Baseball then did a top 100. And then they came to us and said, well, could you do a top 100? You've already done 75. You just have to add 25.
Keep going.
And then make it a book. So we did, and we had to do some updating because some people that worked with us don't work with us anymore, and some people that were alive when the original one came out have passed away. You have to kind of do that, and then we had to add 25 people. So it was a lot of work, and it was a lot of fun. I had a great editor working with us, Rob Peterson, who does a great job for us at The Athletic. Really kind of got everything streamlined, and John Hollinger and I did most of the work on the final 25.
Yeah.
It was great. It was the first book I've actually has my name on it. That's
cool.
Something that's always been in. That's kind of like how I see this career of mine kind of ending, is with me writing a few books, hopefully, while I have time.
Well, it's funny you talk about, you get the bug, you see your name on the newspaper.
Yeah.
It's got to be a really cool thing to see your name on the front of a...
It's forever.
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine who's a history professor, and she's written 3 books, and she said the same thing, you just don't understand until you see your name on it.
Yeah.
And she's right.
That's pretty cool.
It's just different. It's just such a different feeling.
So one of the things, I haven't read the book, but I did some research on it. Like, you have GOAT points.
Yeah.
So tell me about GOAT points.
Well, that's John's. John Hollinger is, kind of one of the premier modern day analytics people. He invented what's called PER, which is player efficiency rating, which kind of cuts through all positions and ranks the players just one through
mathematically,
whatever. Yeah, just uses numbers and math. So he invented that, and a lot of teams still use PER.
That's cool.
As a way to kind of rate players. So he wanted to come up with something that cut through the clutter and cut through the history and the timeline, because that was always a problem. Like, you can't, like, everyone wants to, who's better, Jordan or LeBron? You can't. It's impossible.
Right.
The rules they're not playing the same game. It's literally a different game. You know, so that makes it impossible. So John came up with GOAT points and tried to put some sort of consistency across eras to come up with who he thought were the greatest players ever.
So for those who haven't read the book,
who's number one? It's Michael Jordan, of course. Of course. And people under 40 look at me askance when I say that with that amount of certainty. It's just funny to me.
So my wife has a soon-to-be 14-year-old son, and he's giant. He's 6'2", and loves basketball. So we talk about basketball, and he, LeBron. And so we went down a little rabbit hole with him about Jordan. He comes out and goes, okay. okay. So we're gonna watch The Last Dance with him, which I know you're a big part of that.
Yes.
What was that like being on the other end? Because you've always been the interviewer.
Yeah.
So what's that like to be like having them pick your brain for what you've experienced?
I was very humbled that they thought I had something to offer about this.
Yeah.
Because, I covered it, but a lot of people covered it, right?
Yeah.
And so, I thought I was one of the last people they interviewed just because schedules didn't work out. And I thought, and I knew the guy because he had done a couple other documentaries I thought were very good. So again, I was very happy to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought we talked for almost 2 hours.
Mm.
And I thought was, well, they'll use a quote or two of mine. Like, this is fine.
Little did you know.
At least I'm in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was shocked that they used me as much as they did. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no inkling that was going to happen at all.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Did you know you have a Wikipedia page?
Oh, sure.
Did you know that they don't know what year you were born on it?
It's Wikipedia, man.
I know, but like, is that like, to use like a mystery? You kind of keep that out there. You're like, I'm not going to mess with that. I'm going to have some little mystery to my life.
I was born on February 10th, 1965.
There we go. Wikipedia. Get it right, okay? See, he's right
no
here.
Mystery to it.
Doing facts.
I'm the age I'm at. I can't do anything about it.
Maybe we'll cut this out so we can have that mystery.
Okay,
David Aldridge, mystery.
I was born at some point in the 20th century. Okay.
See, that's the funny part. I like being on a roll with that kind of stuff.